The colony ship Prairie Dawn slowed as it approached the blue-green world of Harmony. After 5 years of travel through the cold emptiness of space, the ship's engines hummed at a lower pitch. Inside the massive vessel, 5,000 colonists prepared for their new lives. William Hayes stood on the observation deck, his hands clasped behind his back. The planet grew larger in the view screen. Hayes had never wanted to be a leader. Back on Earth, he had been a simple agricultural engineer from a small town in Iowa. He knew about growing crops, not leading people. Yet here he was, responsible for humanity's newest attempt to spread among the stars. Beautiful, isn't it? Olivia Martinez joined him at the window. As the ship's security chief, Martinez rarely relaxed. Even now, her eyes scanned the room out of habit. Hayes nodded. Hard to believe we're finally here. 37 light years from Earth. The scans show excellent conditions. Good soil, clean water, breathable air. Martinez tapped her tablet. The advanced probes didn't detect any large predators or dangerous microbes. A perfect place for families to build new lives, Hayes said. Farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, regular people looking for a fresh start. Martinez's expression grew serious. Which is why we need to continue security training for all adults once we land. Hayes sighed. They had had this conversation many times during the journey. Olivia, we're not soldiers. These people came to build homes, not fight wars. And I want to keep it that way, Martinez said. But we both know that being unprepared is dangerous. The Earth government wouldn't have appointed me if they didn't think security was important. Before Hayes could respond, a young officer approached them. Director Hayes, the landing teams are ready for your final approval. Thank you, Paul. I'll be right there. Hayes turned back to Martinez. We'll continue this discussion later. Martinez watched him leave, then turned her attention back to the planet below. Something about this mission made her uneasy. Call it intuition or paranoia, but 20 years in Earth's defense forces had taught her to trust her gut. She pulled up the inventory of the ship's modest armory on her tablet. Personal defense weapons mostly, with some heavier equipment for emergencies. Nothing that would qualify as military grade by Earth standards. The colony charter prohibited weapons of war, but Martinez knew that almost anything could become a weapon in the right hands. She had made sure the colonists understood this during their journey. The next morning, the Prairie Dawn shuttles began their descent to the planet's surface. Hayes led the first landing party to the site chosen for the main settlement. A flat plain near a wide river, surrounded by rolling hills that reminded many of the American Midwest. It looks even better up close, said Susan Clark, a botanist who had been among the first to volunteer for the colony. She knelt to examine the native grass-like plants that covered the ground. The soil composition is perfect. We can start planting earth crops almost immediately, with minimal modification. Around them, other colonists were already unloading equipment from the shuttles. Prefabricated shelter units, agricultural machinery, medical facilities, everything needed to establish a functioning community. Frank Miller supervised the setup of the water purification systems. We'll have clean running water by tonight, he told Hayes. The terraforming equipment can start atmospheric adjustments tomorrow. Within a week, this place will feel just like home. Hayes nodded, pleased with the progress. These were good people. Skilled, determined, and cooperative. They had trained together for 3 years before the mission launched, becoming something between colleagues and family. By sunset, the first settlement building stood completed. The colonists gathered in the central area, where cooking units had been set up for a communal meal. Hayes stood to address them. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, he said. Each of you left Earth seeking something. Adventure, purpose, a place to raise your children in peace. Together we will build not just a colony, but a community. The colonists applauded. Hayes saw hope in their faces, and determination. He also saw exhaustion. The first day on a new world had been long and challenging. Get some rest, he concluded. Tomorrow we continue building our new home. As the crowd dispersed, Martinez approached Hayes. I've established a security perimeter, she said quietly. Nothing fancy, just motion sensors and some automated Drones. We should be fine for now. Hayes frowned. Do you really think that's necessary? We're alone here. We think we're alone, Martinez corrected him. The universe is a big place, William. Better safe than sorry. 3 weeks passed quickly. The colony grew from a collection of prefabricated units to the beginnings of a real settlement. Fields were prepared for planting. A school was established for the children. Scientists cataloged local plants and animals. Every evening, Martinez held training sessions. Most colonists attended reluctantly, more out of respect for Martinez than belief in the necessity. They practiced using the personal defense weapons from the ship's armory. More importantly, they learned how their everyday tools could be used, defensively if needed. Your excavator isn't just for digging irrigation ditches, Martinez explained to a group of farmers. With minor modifications, it can become a projectile launcher capable of hitting targets miles away. Peter Johnson, AI, farmer from Nebraska, shook his head. No offense, Captain, but this seems like overkill. We haven't seen anything more dangerous than those rabbit-like creatures the science team found last week. Martinez remained patient. The most dangerous predators are the ones you never see coming, she said. I'm not asking you to become soldiers. I'm asking you to be prepared. Later that night, Hayes found Martinez at the colony's small command center. She was reviewing data from the long-range sensors they had placed in orbit. Anything interesting? Hayes asked. Martinez pointed to a blip on the screen. This appeared at the edge of the system 3 days ago. It's faint, could be nothing, a comet maybe. But you don't think it's a comet, Hayes said. It wasn't a question. No, I don't. Martinez enlarged the image. The movement pattern is too regular. Whatever it is, it's changing course intentionally. Hayes felt a chill run through him. How long until it reaches us? At current speed, 4 days, maybe 5. Martinez looked up at him. It could be nothing, but better safe than sorry. Hayes finished for her. What do you recommend? Continue preparations as planned. No need to worry everyone yet. But I want to intensify the training sessions. Martinez's expression was grim, and I want to prepare some of our equipment for defensive configurations. Hayes thought of the 5,000 people who had trusted him to lead them safely to a new home. People who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. He thought of Earth, 37 light-years away, too far to provide any help. Do what you need to do, he said finally, but quietly. I don't want to cause a panic. As he left the command center, Hayes looked up at the night sky. Somewhere among those stars, something was heading toward their peaceful colony. He hoped Martinez was wrong. He feared she wasn't. The next morning, as colonists continued building their new lives, unaware of what might be approaching, Hayes watched Martinez quietly directing her security team to position equipment at strategic points around the settlement. The farmer in him hoped they were wasting their time with unnecessary precautions. The leader in him knew better. 5 days after spotting the anomaly, William Hayes stood outside the colony's main administrative building. The morning air was cool and fresh. Around him, colonists went about their daily tasks, unaware of what was coming. He had decided not to share Martinez's discovery with everyone yet. No sense causing worry if it turned out to be nothing. Susan Clark approached with soil samples in her hands. The native fungi are compatible with our wheat, she said excitedly. We might get 2 harvests per year instead of 1. Hayes smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. That's excellent news, Susan. She noticed his distraction. Is everything okay? Before Hayes could answer, his communication device buzzed. It was Martinez. William, we need you at the command center, now. Hayes excused himself and hurried across the settlement. Inside the command center, Martinez and her team stared at their screens. The room was silent except for the soft beeping of equipment. They're here, Martinez said simply. She pointed to the main screen which showed 7 large objects entering orbit around Harmony. Ships? Hayes asked, though he already knew the answer. Martinez nodded. 7 of them, much bigger than the Prairie Dawn, definitely not human design. The reality hit Hayes like a physical blow. After centuries of space exploration, Humanity had found microbes, plant life, and simple animals on various planets, but never intelligent aliens. Until now. Have they made contact? He asked. Not yet. They're establishing orbit approximately 500 miles above us. Martinez tapped commands into her console. I've raised the Prairie Dawn's defensive shields and alerted the crew still. Aboard. I'm also activating our ground defenses. Don't do anything that might seem aggressive, Hayes cautioned. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already. As if responding to his words, the communications system chimed. A message was coming through. This is Admiral Krenval of the Vordai Imperium, said a deep, slightly mechanical voice. The translation system struggled to match the alien language. We wish to speak with the leadership of the human settlement. Hayes took a deep breath and pressed the response button. This is Director William Hayes of the Earth Colony Harmony. We welcome peaceful contact. There was a pause before the reply came. Prepare to receive a delegation at your primary settlement in 2 hours. We have much to discuss. The line went silent. Hayes and Martinez exchanged looks. 2 hours, Hayes said. We need to prepare. Word spread quickly through the colony. Some people were excited, others frightened. Parents kept their children close. Martinez positioned her security team strategically around the landing area, visible enough to show they were prepared, but not so prominently as to appear threatening. Hayes gathered a small reception committee, himself, Martinez, Dr. Elizabeth, Rogers, the colony historian, and Frank Miller, who understood the colony's infrastructure best. They waited at the designated meeting point, a flat area just outside the main settlement. Precisely 2 hours after the communication, a sleek shuttle descended from the sky. It was metallic blue with strange symbols etched on its hull. The craft landed silently, and a ramp extended to the ground. 3 figures emerged. They were tall and slender with bluish-gray skin. Their heads were elongated with large, dark eyes. They wore what appeared to be military uniforms, fitted garments, with insignia that presumably denoted rank. The one in front approached Hayes. I am Admiral Krenval. These are my senior officers, Commander Zeth and Science Director Mira. The translation device on his chest converted his speech. Hayes introduced his team, then said, We welcome you to Harmony. This is a peaceful human colony. Krenval's expression was hard to read. Peaceful, he repeated, yet you occupy a world in disputed space. Hayes frowned. Our surveys indicated this system was unclaimed. We meant no intrusion. The Vordai Imperium has been surveying this sector for colonization, Krenval explained. While we had not formally claimed this planet, it was of interest to us. Martinez stepped forward slightly. We were unaware of any prior claim. Our mission is purely civilian, to establish an agricultural and scientific outpost. The alien called Mira studied them. With obvious curiosity, we detected your ship in orbit. It appears to be a colony vessel, not a military craft. That's correct, Hayes confirmed. The Prairie Dawn carried 5,000 colonists from Earth. We're farmers, scientists, builders, not soldiers. Krenval made a gesture that might have been skepticism. Yet you have defenses. Basic security measures, Martinez said carefully. Standard protocol for any human settlement, even on Earth. The Admiral seemed to consider this. I would like to tour your colony, he said finally, to better understand your peaceful intentions. Hayes agreed, and they began walking through the settlement. Colonists watched curiously but kept their distance. Krenval observed everything with intense interest, the housing units, the medical facility, the fields being prepared for planting. Your technology is different from ours, Mira commented, examining a soil processor. Less advanced in some ways, yet surprisingly sophisticated in others. At the colony's power station, Frank Miller explained their energy systems. We use a combination of solar, wind, and geothermal energy, completely sustainable and clean. Krenval pointed to a large machine nearby. And this device? Atmospheric processor, Miller explained. It helps adjust local weather patterns for optimal growing conditions. The Admiral made a note on his device. Impressive dual-use technology. After the tour, they returned to the administrative building for discussions. Hayes offered the aliens water and fruit, which they politely declined. The Vorti Imperium spans 27 star systems, Krenval explained. We have encountered other species before, but none who have ventured as far from their homeworld as humans. Dr. Rogers spoke up. We're relatively new to interstellar travel. This colony is one of our furthest outposts. Then you are unaware of territorial protocols in this region, Krenval said. It wasn't a question. This puts us in an unusual position. Hayes leaned forward. What position is that, Admiral? According to our laws, unclaimed worlds may be settled by those who discover them. However, the Vorti Imperium had documented interest in this system before your arrival. Krenval paused. We could demand your removal. The room grew tense. Martinez's hand moved slightly closer to her sidearm. However, Krenval continued, we are not unreasonable. We propose a compromise. Your colony may remain under Vorti protection and authority. Protection? Hayes asked carefully. The galaxy can be dangerous. Commander Zeth spoke for the first time. Many species are less accommodating than the Vorti. In exchange for our protection and allowing you to remain, we would expect reasonable taxation and compliance with Imperial regulations. Hayes and Martinez exchanged glances. This was not a compromise. It was thinly veiled subjugation. We appreciate your offer, Hayes said diplomatically, but we would need to understand the full implications before making any decisions. Krenval stood. Of course. We will provide details of our proposal. You have 3 days to consider. His tone made it clear this was not a negotiation between equals. As the aliens prepared to leave, Krenval turned to Hayes. I recommend accepting our generous offer. The alternatives would be less pleasant for your peaceful colony. After the alien shuttle departed, Hayes called an emergency meeting with his leadership team. They're threatening us, Martinez said, bluntly once they were alone. This protection is conquest by another name. Hayes nodded grimly. And they're sizing up our defenses, our technology, our vulnerabilities. What do we do? Asked Susan Clark, who had joined the meeting. Hayes looked at Martinez. Olivia, it seems your security preparations weren't paranoia after all. I wish they had been, she replied quietly. We have 3 days to figure out how to protect 5,000 colonists from a technologically advanced alien fleet. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows across their new home. In orbit above them, 7 warships waited for their answer. The next morning, Hayes called together all the colony leaders. They met in the command center, faces serious as they discussed their options. We have 3 choices, Hayes said. Accept the Vorti terms and become part of their empire. Try to negotiate better terms. Or refuse and risk conflict. Martinez shook her head. From what I observed of their ships, we can't match their military power. The Prairie Dawn has minimal defensive capabilities and our ground weapons are mostly for personal protection. Could we contact Earth for help? Asked Susan Clark. Dr. Elizabeth Rogers sighed. A message would take 37 years to reach Earth, and any help would take just as long to arrive. We're on our own. The room fell silent. 5,000 lives depended on their decision. What about our equipment? Frank Miller spoke up. Captain Martinez has been training us to use our tools defensively. Martinez nodded slowly. Our colony equipment wasn't designed as weapons, but much of it could be repurposed. The question is whether it would be enough to deter the Vorti. We need more information, Hayes decided. We need to understand exactly what we're facing. They spent the day gathering data. The Prairie Dawn sensors scanned the alien vessels, while colonists with scientific backgrounds analyzed the readings. By evening, they had a clearer picture of the Vorti capabilities. Their ships have energy weapons we've never seen before, Martinez reported during the evening meeting. But their defensive systems seem focused on countering similar energy weapons, not physical projectiles. Hayes leaned forward. Is that significant? It could be. Most of our potential weapons would be projectile-based or utilize electromagnetic principles. Martinez pulled up diagrams on her tablet. They may not be prepared for that kind of attack. The second day brought an unexpected development. The Vordi sent a message requesting another meeting, this time aboard their command ship. They specifically asked for Hayes and Martinez to attend. It's risky, Martinez warned as they prepared to board a shuttle to the Vordi vessel, but it might give us more intelligence about their capabilities. The Vordi flagship was enormous, dwarfing the Prairie Dawn. Inside, the corridors were tall and narrow, lit with a bluish glow that made the humans squint. Admiral Krenval met them in what appeared to be a command center. "Have you considered our proposal?" the Admiral asked without preamble. Hayes maintained a neutral expression. "We're still evaluating our options. We're curious why the Vordi are so interested in harmony." Krenval gestured to a large screen showing the planet. "This world has valuable resources and a strategic position. The Vordi Imperium is expanding. We require new worlds." "And if we decline your protection?" Hayes asked carefully. Instead of answering directly, Krenval entered commands into a console. The screen changed to show a small, uninhabited island about 200 miles from the human settlement. "Observe," the Admiral said. A beam of energy shot from the Vordi ship, striking the island. The humans watched in horror as the landmass exploded, sending water and debris high into the air. When the dust settled, the island was gone. "That was a minimal demonstration," Krenval said calmly. "Your settlement would require only slightly more power." Hayes struggled to keep his voice steady. "Your message is very clear, Admiral." "I hoped it would be. Your answer is expected tomorrow." On the shuttle ride back to the colony, Hayes and Martinez were silent for a long time. "They're going to destroy us if we refuse," Hayes finally said. Martinez stared out the window at the planet. "Below. Not if we convince them it would cost too much." Back at the colony, they called an emergency meeting and shared what they had witnessed. The colony leaders were shaken, but Martinez was already forming a plan. "They showed us their power," she said. "Now we need to show them ours." "What power?" Frank Miller asked. "We just saw them vaporize an island." Martinez smiled grimly. "We have equipment that can reshape the landscape, alter weather patterns, and move massive amounts of earth and water. With some modifications, we can demonstrate just how dangerous peaceful human colonists can be." She outlined her plan. It was risky, but it might be their only chance to maintain independence. The next morning, the third day, Hayes sent a message to the Vordi. "Before we give our final answer, we would like to show you something. Please observe the uninhabited island." In Sector 4, from the command center, Hayes, Martinez, and the other leaders watched as a group of colonists traveled to another uninhabited island. They brought what looked like ordinary farm equipment. Peter Johnson, a farmer, positioned his soil excavator on the beach. With modifications Martinez had helped make, the machine was now capable of launching metal rods at hypersonic speeds using electromagnetic principles. "Ready," Johnson reported over the communication system. Hayes looked at Martinez, who nodded. "Proceed with the demonstration," he ordered. Johnson activated his modified excavator. A rod shot out with incredible speed, hitting the water near the island with such force that it created a massive splash visible from orbit. A second rod struck the island itself, piercing deep into the rock before detonating. A third of the island collapsed into the sea. Susan Clark activated a modified atmospheric processor. The machine, designed to create ideal growing conditions by manipulating air currents, now generated a powerful electromagnetic pulse. The pulse swept across the area, temporarily disrupting electronic systems. Finally, Frank Miller demonstrated the colony's water management systems. Originally designed to create irrigation networks, the equipment now drilled precise holes deep into the island's foundation. Miller injected a mixture of water and chemicals that rapidly expanded, creating underground cavities. Within minutes, the remaining portion of the island began to break apart, sinking beneath the waves. From the Vordi ships, There was silence. Then Admiral Krenval's voice came through the communication system. "Director Hayes, we request an immediate meeting." 2 hours later, Hayes and Martinez stood in the colony's administration building, facing the Vordi delegation. Admiral Krenval seemed different, less confident, more cautious. "Your demonstration was unexpected," the Admiral said. "Those were agricultural tools?" "Yes," Hayes confirmed. "Equipment designed for farming, building, and environmental management. Yet, they destroyed an island as effectively as our weapons," Krenval observed. Martinez stepped forward. "Admiral, every piece of equipment in our colony serves dual purposes. We came here to build, to grow food, to create a peaceful settlement. But we also came prepared to defend ourselves." Krenval studied them with new respect. "I believe we may have misjudged humans. Your peaceful colony has defensive capabilities, comparable to a Vordi battle group. We don't want conflict," Hayes said firmly, "but we won't surrender our independence." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "Perhaps we should discuss a true compromise. Not protection, but alliance. Equal terms between our peoples." As they began to negotiate, Hayes caught Martinez's eye across the table. Her security precautions, which many colonists had found excessive, had just saved them from subjugation or destruction. Outside, colonists returned to their daily tasks, still peaceful, still focused on building their new home, but now recognized not as easy prey but as formidable potential allies. The next day, Admiral Krenval requested a formal meeting aboard the Prairie Dawn. It was a significant gesture, coming to the human ship rather than demanding the humans visit his vessel again. Hayes welcomed the Vordi delegation in the ship's conference room. Martinez stood nearby, alert but less openly cautious than before. Dr. Elizabeth Rogers joined them, along with Frank Miller and several other colony leaders. "We have considered your demonstration carefully," Admiral Krenval began. He seemed genuinely curious now rather than threatening. "I must admit we are puzzled by your people." "In what way?" Hayes asked. "Your colony ship contains no warships. Your settlers are not soldiers. Your stated mission is peaceful agricultural development." Krenval gestured to the window where Harmony was visible below. "Yet you can defend yourselves as effectively as a military force." Dr. Rogers spoke up. "Perhaps I can provide some context, Admiral. I'm the colony's historian." Krenval nodded for her to continue. "Human history is filled with conflict," Rogers explained. "For thousands of years we fought each other over resources, territory, beliefs, and power. Our technology developed alongside this conflict." The Admiral listened intently. "The Vordi evolved differently. Our species achieved unity early in our development. Our conflicts have primarily been with other species we encountered as we expanded." "That explains a lot," Martinez commented. "Your weapons are designed specifically as weapons. You don't seem to have the concept of dual-purpose technology." "Dual purpose?" Commander Zeth asked, looking confused. Hayes nodded to Frank Miller, who activated a display showing some of the colony's equipment. "This atmospheric processor," Miller explained, pointing to a large machine, "was designed to create ideal growing conditions by manipulating weather patterns. But the same technology that can create a gentle rain can also generate an electromagnetic storm capable of disrupting ship systems." He switched to another image. "This excavator digs irrigation channels and prepares fields for planting. With minor adjustments, it becomes a weapon that can fire projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Every piece of equipment in our colony serves two purposes," Martinez added. "Creation and, if necessary, destruction." Krenval exchanged glances with his officers. "This is unusual. In Vordi culture, weapons are designed as weapons. Tools are designed as tools. Humans learned a harsh lesson from our history," Rogers continued. "Being unprepared for conflict can be fatal. Every human colony ship carries people who want nothing more than to build new lives. But our past taught us to always be ready to defend ourselves. Defensive deterrence," Hayes explained, seeing the Admiral's confusion. "We arm ourselves not because we want war, but because we want to prevent it. A prepared target is less likely to be attacked. The Admiral was silent for a long time. I begin to understand. You are not warriors pretending to be peaceful. You are peaceful settlers who can become warriors if threatened. Exactly, Hayes confirmed. Krenval stood and walked to the window, looking down at the planet. The Vordai Imperium has encountered 17 other species in our expansion. Most either submitted to our authority or were militarily defeated. He turned back to face the humans. None were like you. The meeting continued for hours. The Vordai asked detailed questions about human history, technology, and philosophy. The humans answered honestly, explaining concepts that seemed foreign to the aliens. Mutual deterrence, civilian defense, and the human tendency to prepare for worst-case scenarios. As the discussion progressed, Hayes realized something important was happening. The Vordai weren't just evaluating the humans as a potential threat anymore. They were reassessing their entire approach. May I ask a direct question, Admiral? Hayes said during a pause in the conversation. Krenval nodded. What did you really expect when you arrived here? Did you anticipate that we would simply surrender to your demands? The Admiral's expression was hard to read, but his voice carried a note of what might have been embarrassment. Based on our scans of your colony's ship and settlement, we classified you as a non-military expedition. In our experience, civilian settlements typically accept protection rather than risk destruction. You thought we would be easy targets, Martinez stated bluntly. Yes, Krenval admitted. That was our assessment. The human leaders exchanged glances. Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. How many other peaceful civilizations had faced this choice and submitted because they couldn't defend themselves? Dr. Rogers leaned forward. Admiral, would you be willing to tell us more about the other species the Vordai have encountered? Perhaps we could learn from their experiences. Krenval seemed to consider this request carefully before responding. The Vordai Imperium maintains detailed records of all encountered species. Some have become valued parts of our empire. Others chose paths that ended poorly for them. And what path do you see for humans? Hayes asked quietly. For the first time, the Admiral's expression showed something like respect. A new one, perhaps. Your demonstration yesterday has forced us to reconsider our approach. As the meeting concluded, Krenval made an unexpected offer. I would like to invite Director Hayes and Captain Martinez to visit our homeworld as representatives of humanity. The Vordai High Council would be interested in establishing formal relations with your species. Hayes was surprised. That's a significant change from your original position, Admiral. Circumstances have changed, Krenval replied, simply. You have proven that humans, even peaceful colonists, are not to be underestimated. After the Vordai delegation departed, Hayes called a meeting with the colony's leadership council. They gathered in the administrative building to discuss this new development. Do you think we can trust them? Susan Clark asked skeptically. Martinez shrugged. Trust isn't the issue. They've recognized that trying to subjugate us would be costly. This is pragmatism, not friendship. Still, Hayes said, it's a better outcome than we might have expected 3 days ago. Frank Miller nodded, thoughtfully. It's ironic. We came here to build a peaceful colony, but it's our capacity for violence that earned their respect. Not violence, Rogers corrected. Resilience. The will to defend what's ours, and the foresight to prepare for threats. Hayes looked around, the table at the faces of these ordinary people, farmers, engineers, scientists, who had come to Harmony seeking a peaceful life among the stars. None of them wanted to be warriors, yet their willingness to fight if necessary had protected their freedom. Whatever happens next, Hayes said, we've established something important. Humans won't be seen as easy targets for conquest. Outside, the window, one of the Vordai ships moved into a higher orbit. Its weapons, designed solely for destruction, had been neutralized not by superior firepower, but by the creative adaptability of human technology and the determination of peaceful people to defend their home. Martinez watched the ship with professional interest. They'll spread word to other species, she predicted. The message will be clear. Even human civilians are dangerous when threatened. Hayes nodded, hoping that message would protect not just their colony, but all human settlements among the stars. Sometimes the best way to ensure peace was to be prepared for war, a lesson humanity had learned through countless conflicts on Earth, and now carried to the stars. 1 week after their initial arrival, 6 of the 7 Vordi ships prepared to depart from Harmony. Only the smallest vessel would remain as a diplomatic presence and communication relay. The humans watched from their settlement as the massive ships rose into the bright morning sky. Hayes stood with Martinez outside the administrative building, looking up as the ships became small dots and then vanished entirely. "Do you think they'll keep their word?" Hayes asked. Martinez considered the question. "I believe they will. Not because they suddenly like us, but because they respect our capabilities." She smiled slightly. Fear can be a powerful motivator for peace. The final negotiated agreement had surprised everyone. The Vordi recognized Harmony as sovereign human territory. In exchange, they received limited trade rights and permission to establish a small observation post on the far side of the planet. Most importantly, both sides agreed to share certain technologies, agricultural techniques from the humans, faster-than-light communication methods from the Vordi. Before departure, Admiral Krenval had requested a private meeting with Hayes and Martinez. They met in a small room in the colony's administrative building without other staff present. "There is something you should know," the Admiral said once they were alone. "The Vordi High Council had plans for significant expansion in this sector. Your colony was to be the first of many acquisitions." Hayes felt a chill. "And now?" "Those plans are being reconsidered." Krenval's expression was solemn. "I will be direct. We believed human colonies would be easy targets, peaceful settlers with minimal defenses. We did not expect farmers with world-destroying capabilities." Martinez leaned forward. "We don't have world-destroying capabilities. We showed you what our equipment could do on a small scale. Our scientists analyzed your demonstration and extrapolated the potential damage if applied systematically across a planet's surface." Krenval made a gesture that seemed to indicate respect. "The results were concerning. Even without warships, your colonists could render a world uninhabitable." The humans exchanged glances, surprised by this assessment. "We came to build, not destroy," Hayes emphasized. "Yes. That is what makes humans unique in our experience," the Admiral replied. "Other species either develop as warriors or as peaceful builders. You somehow managed to be both simultaneously." The Admiral stood, to leave but paused at the door. "We will spread word through the galaxy. Humans do not need warships to be dangerous. Your people turn plowshares into weapons more fearsome than our purpose-built destroyers." Now, watching the Vordi fleet depart, Hayes thought about that conversation. "They'll tell others about us," he said to Martinez. "Good," she replied. "The more species that know not to underestimate human colonists, the better." Later that day, Hayes called a colony-wide gathering. All 5,000 settlers assembled. In the central plaza, children sat on parents' shoulders to get a better view. The mood was cautiously optimistic. "The Vordi have departed," Hayes announced. "Our agreement with them ensures our independence and safety. Harmony remains our home, on our terms." A cheer went up from the crowd. People hugged each other, relieved that the crisis had passed without bloodshed. "But I want to acknowledge what really saved us," Hayes continued when the noise died down. "Not just our technology, but our preparation and willingness to defend ourselves. And for that, we owe a great debt to Captain Olivia Martinez." He gestured for Martinez to join him. She stepped forward reluctantly, unused to being the center of attention. "Many of you complained about her security drills," Hayes said with a smile. "Some thought her precautions were excessive. I myself questioned whether we needed such measures on a peaceful mission." Martinez looked slightly embarrassed as people turned to her. But Captain Martinez understood something essential about human history and human nature. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Peace must be maintained, sometimes by demonstrating that aggression would come at too high a cost. The colonists applauded. Even those who had grumbled the loudest about security training now nodded in agreement. As we continue building our home here, Hayes concluded, we will maintain our dual nature. We are builders and farmers, scientists and teachers, but we will also remain vigilant and prepared. That is the human way, not because we love conflict, but because we cherish peace enough to defend it. As the gathering dispersed, people returned to their daily tasks. Fields needed planting, buildings needed construction, and 1,000 other jobs awaited. Life would continue, more secure now than before. Dr. Elizabeth Rogers approached Hayes and Martinez as they walked back to the administrative building. You know what I find most fascinating about all this? She said thoughtfully. The Vordi evolved without the internal conflicts that shaped human development. They never needed to create dual-purpose technology because they never fought among themselves. Is that better or worse? Hayes asked. Rogers shrugged. Different, certainly. They became excellent at creating dedicated weapons, but they never developed our flexibility. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Martinez nodded. And when your hammer can also be a plow, a drill, or a shield, you have more options. A month later, life in the colony had settled into familiar routines. The crops were growing well, new buildings rose daily, and children played in the newly constructed schoolyard. The presence of a small Vordi observation post on the far side of the planet had become an accepted fact, barely discussed. Hayes found Martinez at the training field, where she was teaching a group of colonists how to modify an irrigation system for defensive purposes. Still at it, I see, Hayes said with a smile. Martinez shrugged. Old habits. Besides, the Vordi aren't the only species out there. True enough. Hayes watched as the colonists practiced the modifications. Any word from the diplomatic team that went with the Vordi? They sent a message yesterday. Apparently, the Vordi High Council was impressed by our creative approach to technology. They're interested in learning more about human innovation. Hayes chuckled. Who would have thought? We came to grow crops and ended up teaching an advanced alien civilization about putting tools to multiple uses. As the sun began to set, they walked back toward the settlement. The buildings glowed golden in the evening light, and the fields stretched green and promising toward the horizon. Harmony was living up to its name, a peaceful human colony on a distant world. Yet hidden within that peaceful scene was a strength that had surprised an interstellar empire. The same hands that planted crops could defend them. The same minds that designed irrigation systems could repurpose them as weapons if needed. This was humanity's gift and burden among the stars, the knowledge born of countless conflicts on Earth, the preparedness that came from a violent history. Peace through strength, creation alongside potential destruction. As night fell on Harmony, the colonists slept soundly, and throughout the galaxy, word began to spread. Even peaceful human settlements should not be underestimated. Even farmers could be formidable. Even those who came to build could, if necessary, destroy. The best way to ensure they remained builders was to never force them to become warriors.